The night was quiet. Too quiet. Daniel sat alone in his small home on the edge of the human colony, a place most people avoided because it was close to the wild zones. The wind outside was still. No sound of animals, no hum of passing ships. Just silence. He sat at his desk, fixing an old radio. The soft ticking of his tools was the only sound. Then, without warning, a faint shadow moved past his window. Daniel froze. It wasn't the slow movement of an animal or the shape of a neighbor. This shadow moved with purpose, smooth, controlled, and silent. His first thought was thief, but something in his gut told him this was different. He placed his tools down slowly and reached for the small pulse pistol he kept hidden under the desk. He didn't switch on the light. Instead, he stayed still, listening. A soft click came from the front door, like someone picking the lock. Daniel's heart started to race. The door opened only an inch, and the shadow slipped inside. She moved. Like water, her steps so light they made no sound on the wooden floor. A black cloak covered her body, and the faint glint of metal suggested weapons hidden underneath. Her head turned slowly, skinning the room, the hood hiding her face. Daniel didn't move. He didn't breathe. The figure took 3 careful steps inside, then stopped in front of his shelf. Her eyes bright and sharp, almost glowing in the dim light, fell on something. Daniel followed her gaze. She was looking at a small photo frame on the shelf. In that photo was Daniel, younger, smiling, holding the hand of a small alien child. The picture was faded, edges worn with time. Her fingers twitched slightly, as if the sight of that photo had disturbed her. She reached out and picked it up. Staring at it for several seconds, Daniel used that moment to speak, his voice calm but firm. "Who are you?" She didn't turn. She just kept staring at the photo. "You shouldn't be here," Daniel continued. "If you came for something, take it and go." Finally, she turned her head toward him, and he saw her face under the hood. Smooth, pale skin with faint silver markings that ran from her eyes to her jaw. Her eyes were a deep shade of violet, like 2 pools of cold fire. Her voice was low, steady, and dangerous. "You're Daniel Cross." Daniel's grip on the pistol tightened. "Depends who's asking." Her gaze sharpened. "I was sent to kill you." The words hit like ice. But Daniel didn't panic. "Then why are you still talking?" She didn't answer. Instead, she glanced back at the photo in her hand. Her eyes softened just for a second before the coldness returned. Outside, the silence broke. The sound of boots crunching dirt echoed from the distance. More than one set. Daniel noticed her reaction, her head tilted slightly, listening. "They're coming," she whispered. "Who?" he asked. Her hand moved inside her cloak, and Daniel thought this was a she would strike. But instead, she pulled out a small, curved blade and tossed it onto the table between them. "Hide," she said. Daniel frowned. "Y2 just said you came to kill me." "No time," she replied sharply, moving to the window and scanning the outside. "If they find you, you won't even have the chance to ask why." Daniel hesitated. Trusting her made no sense. But the sound of approaching footsteps grew louder, and his instincts screamed that whoever was coming was not here for tea. He ducked behind the kitchen counter as the front door burst open. 4 figures entered, dressed in dark armor, their helmets shaped like insect heads. The leader spoke in a harsh, clicking alien language Daniel didn't understand. The woman, his would-be assassin, moved fast. Her cloak swirled as she kicked the first intruder in the chest, knocking him back. The curved blade flashed in her hand, striking with deadly precision. Daniel peeked from behind the counter. She wasn't fighting like someone protecting herself. She was fighting like someone protecting him. One attacker reached for his gun, but she was faster. A single throw of her blade and the weapon clattered to the floor. She grabbed Daniel by the arm. "Move!" she shouted. They ran through the back door into the dark forest. Daniel's mind was a storm of questions. Who was she? Why didn't she kill him when she had the chance? And why did she look at that photo like it meant something to her? The night swallowed them as they ran. But one thought kept repeating in Daniel's head. The assassin who came to kill him had just saved his life. The forest was silent, except for the sound of their footsteps on the damp ground. Daniel struggled to keep up. The woman in the black cloak moved like a shadow, gliding between the trees, her feet barely making a sound. "Slow down," Daniel hissed, trying to catch his breath. She didn't turn around. "You want to live? Keep moving." Branches whipped against his arms as they weaved through the dense undergrowth. The pale moonlight cut through the trees, painting silver lines across her cloak. Daniel's mind raced. He had just met this woman, an assassin, who admitted she came to kill Hammond. Now he was running for his life with her. They finally stopped near a cluster of thick trees hidden from the open path. She crouched low, listening. Daniel leaned against a tree, trying to read her face, but the hood covered most of it. "Who were those people back there?" he asked. "They're syndicate trackers," she replied, her voice calm but sharp. "They'll find us soon if we stay here." Daniel frowned. "And you're not with them?" She glanced at him, and for the first time he saw her eyes clearly deep violet, glowing faintly in the moonlight. They were cold at first, but behind that coldness was something inflicted. "I was," she said simply. Daniel's grip tightened on the small pulse pistol he still carried. So why the sudden change of heart? Instead of answering, she pulled a small device from her belt, a compact scanner. It emitted a faint hum as she swept it around the area. "No trackers nearby," she murmured. Daniel took a cautious step closer. "You could have killed me back there? Easily. But you didn't. Why?" She met his gaze again. This time, she didn't look away. "You have her eyes." Daniel blinked. "Whose?" She turned her face away. "Not now." Frustration bubbled inside him. "If you're going to keep me alive, I at least deserve to know why." She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into her cloak and took out the same photo she had seen in his house. She stared at it for a long moment before tucking it back inside. Suddenly, a faint snap echoed from somewhere behind them, like a twig breaking underfoot. Her head jerked toward the sound. "They're still on us," she whispered. "We have to move." Daniel hesitated. "We can't just keep running forever." "We don't have to," she said. "I know a place." She led him through twisting animal paths until they reached an old, half-buried structure. The walls were made of dark metal, covered in moss and vines. A broken emblem was carved into the entrance, alien symbols Daniel couldn't read. "What is this place?" he asked. "An outpost," she replied, pushing open the heavy door with a low creak. "From before your colony was even here." Inside, the air was cold and damp. Dust floated in the beam of light from her small wrist lamp. Broken crates lay scattered across the floor, and an old control console hummed faintly with power. She motioned for Daniel to sit behind a pile of crates while she checked the perimeter. Daniel used the moment to study her more closely. She moved like someone who had trained her whole life, every step calculated, every gesture controlled. When she returned, she stood silently, watching him. "You're not what I expected," she said finally. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "And what exactly did you expect?" "A monster," she said bluntly. "That's what they told me you were. A war criminal. A human who killed without mercy." Daniel stared at her. "And you believed them?" "I believe what I see," she replied. "That's why I haven't killed you." Her words hung in the cold air for a long time. They didn't speak. Outside, The faint sound of movement told them the syndicate trackers were still searching. Daniel's heart pounded, but he noticed something strange despite the danger. He didn't feel as afraid as he should. There was something about her eyes. Cold, yes, but they held a strange depth, like they had seen too much, and hidden behind that was a flicker of something else. Regret, maybe? Finally, Daniel broke the silence. If they catch us, what happens? Her answer was simple. You die, and I lose the last piece of my soul I haven't given to them yet. Daniel didn't fully understand her meaning, but it sent a chill through him. Somewhere deep inside, he knew this assassin wasn't just fighting for him. She was fighting something inside herself. The night outside the old outpost was colder now. Mist curled along the forest floor like ghostly fingers, and every sound seemed louder in the silence. Daniel sat behind the crates, his ears straining for any sign of movement. The assassin Lyra, though she hadn't given her name yet, was crouched near the door, her head tilted as she listened. She didn't move much, but Daniel could see the tension in her shoulders. They're close. She whispered. Daniel swallowed. How close? Her eyes flicked to him. Too close. Without another word, she moved to the back wall of the outpost and pressed her hand against the cold metal. A faint click echoed, and a hidden panel slid open, revealing a narrow tunnel sloping downward. Inside, she ordered. Daniel hesitated, glancing at the dark hole. And where does this go? Somewhere safer than here, she said. He didn't have the luxury to argue. The distant sound of alien voices, harsh, clicking tones, was getting louder. He slipped into the tunnel, the damp walls pressing in. Around him, Lyra followed, closing the panel behind them. The tunnel was low, forcing them to crouch as they moved. It smelled of rust and wet stone, somewhere far above. Daniel could hear muffled footsteps as the syndicate trackers entered the outpost. Won't they find this tunnel? Daniel whispered. They don't know it exists, she replied. It's from an older time before the syndicate took this sector. They moved in silence for several minutes until the tunnel opened into a larger cavern. A faint blue glow shimmered from crystals embedded in the walls. In the center, an underground river flowed quietly. This is beautiful, Daniel murmured. Before he could stop himself, Lyra didn't reply. She moved to the edge of the river and knelt, dipping her fingers into the cold water. She scanned the far side, then pointed. We cross there. Daniel frowned. Can't they track us through water? They can't track what doesn't leave a trail, she said simply. They waded in. The water was freezing, biting at Daniel's legs, but Lyra moved as if it didn't bother her. Halfway across, Daniel slipped on a smooth rock, nearly falling. She caught his arm instantly, her grip strong. Careful, she said, her voice softer than before. He looked at her in the dim glow. For a moment, her usual cold expression was gone. There was no assassin's mask, just a flash of something human. They reached the far side and climbed out, dripping and shivering. Lyra led him deeper into the cavern until they reached another hidden exit, this one opening into thick undergrowth. Daniel peered out. Where are we now? On the other side of the trackers, she said. They'll be searching the outpost for hours. Daniel shook his head. You planned all this? Her eyes flicked to him, unreadable. I plan everything. They began moving again through the forest, this time at a slower pace. Daniel noticed she kept glancing at the trees, as if checking for hidden dangers. Finally, after what felt like hours, they stopped near a rocky cliffside where a narrow path wound upward. Lyra leaned against the stone, breathing slowly. You're tired, Daniel said. I don't get tired. She replied automatically, but there was a faint tremor in her hands. Daniel knew better than to push, but he couldn't stop himself. Back there, In my house. When you saw that photo, you looked like you knew her. Her jaw tightened. I did. Daniel waited, but she didn't say more. The silence stretched until she finally added, "She was taken from me. Years ago." The pieces didn't fit yet, but Daniel's mind was working. Whoever that girl was, she was the reason Lyra hadn't killed him. Before he could ask more, a sound cut through the night, a low hum in the distance. Lyra stiffened instantly. "Ship engines," she said. "They're sweeping the area." Scrambled up the cliff path, taking cover behind jagged rocks as a dark patrol craft passed overhead. Its searchlights slicing through the trees below. The beam swept dangerously close, but didn't find them. When the ship was gone, Daniel let out a slow breath. "I guess that's what you call an unlikely escape," he said. Lyra gave the faintest hint of a smile, so quick Daniel almost thought he imagined it. "We're not safe yet," she said, starting up the path again. Daniel followed, but in his mind, something had changed. She wasn't just an assassin anymore. She was someone fighting a battle far bigger than killing him, and whatever that battle was, he was now part of it. By the time the first rays of sunlight touched the treetops, Daniel and the assassin had reached a high ridge overlooking the valley. The forest stretched endlessly below them, covered in a soft morning mist. They stopped in the shadow of a large rock. Lyra knelt, scanning the horizon with sharp eyes. She had removed her hood now, and the pale light revealed her silver facial markings clearly. Daniel noticed her gaze wasn't just looking for danger, was calculating. Every escape route, every high point, every possible place to hide was being mapped in her mind. Finally, she spoke. "We can rest here, for a little while." Daniel sank against the rock, his legs aching from the night's journey. "So," he began, "are you finally going to tell me why the Syndicate wants me dead?" Her eyes flicked to him briefly. "You really don't know? Would I be asking if I did?" He said dryly. For the first time since they met, Lyra actually sat down beside him. She looked out at the valley, her expression unreadable. "The Syndicate believes you're hiding something. Something they want." Daniel frowned. "And what exactly would that be?" "A girl," Lyra said quietly. Daniel's heart skipped. "A girl." Lyra nodded slowly. "Years ago, you saved someone. Not human. A child from my clan. The Syndicate has been looking for her ever since. They believe you know where she is." Daniel stared at her. "You mean?" T hesitated, his voice dropping. "You mean Lyra?" Lyra's head turned sharply. "You know her name?" "I didn't know it at the time," Daniel said. "She was just a scared kid who got separated from her family. I helped her get off-world. That's all." Lyra's voice was quieter now. "She's my sister." The words hit him harder than he expected. Suddenly, everything made sense. Way she froze when she saw the photo. The hesitation before she struck. The way she had protected him. Daniel leaned forward. "The Syndicate told you I hurt her, didn't they?" Her jaw tightened. "They told me you killed her." Daniel shook his head slowly. "No. I kept her safe until a transport ship came through. I paid the captain to take her somewhere far from here, where the Syndicate couldn't reach her." For a long time, Lyra said nothing. She just looked at him, her violet eyes searching his face for any sign of a lie. Finally, she exhaled slowly, as if releasing something she had carried for years. "They used me," she said bitterly. "They turned me into a weapon to destroy the one person who might have helped me find her." Daniel wanted to ask why she had stayed with them if she knew they lied, but he stopped himself. He could see it in her face. Leaving the Syndicate wasn't just dangerous, it was nearly impossible. "What happens now?" Daniel asked quietly. Lyra's gaze hardened again. "Now, we disappear. The Syndicate won't stop until they've wrung every secret from you. And if they think you know where my sister is, they'll burn every colony in this sector to find out. Daniel shook his head. I don't know where she is now. The captain never told me. Lyra studied him. Then we find her together. Daniel blinked. You're serious? Her lips curved into the faintest smile. I didn't just save your life to hand you back to them later. Before Daniel could reply, a faint buzzing sound reached their ears. Lyra's head snapped up. Drones, she said sharply. We've been here too long. They grabbed their gear and slipped into the trees just as small black shapes began to sweep across the sky as they moved. Daniel glanced at her. You never told me your name? Lyra, she said simply. He nodded. Well, Lyra, thanks for not killing me. She smirked faintly. Don't thank me yet, human. We're only getting started. Somewhere far away, deep inside Syndicate headquarters, a red warning signal lit up. The tracker embedded in one of the fallen soldiers had just activated. They knew Lyra had turned against them, and they were sending more than just trackers this time. The forest grew darker as evening fell, the sun sinking behind jagged mountains. Daniel and Lyra had been moving all day without stopping, avoiding the main trails. Every sound made them tense. A rustle in the bushes, the distant cry of a night creature, the hum of unseen engines above. They finally reached a narrow gorge where sharp rocks formed natural walls on either side. Lyra slowed, raising her hand for Daniel to stop. What is it? He whispered. Her eyes scanned the shadows. Something's wrong. It's too quiet. Daniel frowned. I thought you liked quiet. Not this kind, she muttered. She moved ahead cautiously, every step calculated. Daniel followed, his pulse pistol ready, though he knew he wasn't nearly as skilled as she was. The gorge twisted sharply to the right, and that's when it happened. The air exploded with motion. Figures dropped from the rocks above, their armor black with Syndicate markings. Blaster fire lit the shadows. Lyra reacted instantly, pulling Daniel behind a large boulder as shots scorched the stone. They knew we were coming. Daniel shouted over the noise. Lyra's expression hardened. Someone fed them our location. Daniel's stomach sank. But how? We've been careful, she didn't answer. Instead, she spun out from cover, her curved blade flashing as she struck down one attacker. But there were too many. A shot rang out, and Lyra jerked back, her hand going to her side. Blood, dark and almost black, in the dim light seeped. Between her fingers, Daniel's heart pounded. You're hit. I've had worse, she said through gritted teeth. But her movements were slower now. The Syndicate soldiers closed in. Daniel's instincts screamed at him to run, but he saw Lyra stumble, her weapon slipping from her grasp. Without thinking, he broke cover, grabbed her arm, and pulled her toward the far end of the gorge. Move, he shouted. Blaster fire chased them, sizzling past their heads. Lyra tried to protest, but her strength was fading. Daniel half-carried her, weaving through the rocks until they reached a narrow crack in the cliff wall. He shoved her inside first. Then followed, the space barely wide enough for both of them. They crouched in the dark, pressed close, listening as Syndicate boots pounded past outside. Daniel kept his voice low. Tell me you have a plan. Lyra's breathing was shallow. Right now, stay alive. He looked down at her wound. The fabric of her suit was scorched, the skin beneath raw and bleeding. Daniel tore a strip from his sleeve and pressed it against her side. She flinched but didn't push him away. You're going to bleed out if we don't do something, he said. Her violet eyes met his in the dim light. Why are you helping me? Daniel almost laughed. Are you serious? You've saved my life 3 times in 2 days. Her lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. 3 times. Maybe 4, depending on how you count, he said. For a moment, the tension between them shifted, no longer just assassin and target, but two people in the same fight. Outside, the syndicate soldiers' voices grew faint. As they moved deeper into the gorge, Daniel waited several minutes before speaking again. "They're gone." Lyra shook her head. "No, they'll circle back. We can't stay here." She tried to stand, but her legs trembled. Daniel caught her before she fell. "You're not walking anywhere without help." Her pride made her hesitate, but finally she nodded. "Fine, but if I tell you to drop me and run, not happening," Daniel said firmly. They slipped out of the crack and moved along the cliff edge, Daniel supporting most of her weight. The sky was almost black now, the first stars appearing overhead. By the time they reached the tree line, Lyra's steps were unsteady. Daniel spotted a hollow under the roots of an enormous tree, just big enough for them to crawl inside. He eased her down, then knelt beside her. "Rest, I'll keep watch." She looked at him for a long moment, as if trying to read something in his face. Finally, she said quietly, "I've fought beside people who were supposed to be my allies. None of them ever risked themselves for me like you just did." Daniel shrugged. "Guess I'm not like most people." A faint, tired smile touched her lips. "No, you're not." But in her mind, another thought burned. Maybe I've been fighting for the wrong side all along. Night wrapped the forest in a heavy silence. The only sounds were the soft rustle of leaves and the steady breathing of Daniel as he kept watch outside their hiding place beneath the massive tree roots. Lyra lay against the inner wall, her wounds still aching, her mind a storm. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw her sister's face younger, smiling before the syndicate took her away. And now, the man she was sent to kill claimed he had saved that sister's life. She didn't know if she could believe him. But deep inside, a voice whispered that he was telling the truth. A faint chirp broke the silence. Lyra's eyes snapped open. The sound came from the small cum device hidden inside her armor. She hesitated before pulling it out, cupping it in her hands to hide the glow. A distorted voice came through, low and cold. "Agent Lyra. Status." She kept her voice flat. "Target is alive. I have his location." There was a pause. Then the voice said, "Good. Bring him in, alive, if possible. In return, we will give you what you want." Her pulse quickened. "And what is that?" Another pause, longer this time. Then the voice spoke slowly, deliberately. "Your sister, Lyra." Froze. "She is alive." The voice continued. "We have kept her safe all these years. Bring us the human, and you will be reunited. Refuse, and you will never see her again." The cum went silent. Lyra's grip on the device tightened. Her thoughts spun wildly. This was everything she had wanted. The reason she had served the syndicate. The reason she had killed without question. But if what Daniel said was true, the syndicate had lied to her about him. So what else had they lied about? She could end it all tonight. She could lead him into a trap, hand him over, and finally see her sister. But the image of Daniel dragging her out of that gorge, risking his life while blaster fire burned the air around them, kept flashing in her mind. He had no reason to help her, and yet he had. A faint movement drew her attention. Daniel was returning from his watch, crouching to enter the hollow. "Everything's clear for now," he whispered. "You should try to sleep." Lyra studied his face. Tired, determined, and trusting. He didn't know about the message. She turned her head away, hiding the turmoil in her eyes. "I'll be fine." Daniel sat opposite her, checking the charge. "On his pistol, when we make it out of here, what then?" She hesitated. "What do you mean? I mean, are you planning to go back to the syndicate? Or are you done with them?" Lyra didn't answer immediately. "If I leave, they'll hunt me, and they'll hunt you. Daniel gave a small shrug. Guess we'll have to be hard to catch. She almost smiled, but the weight of the choice pressed down harder. Later, when Daniel drifted into a light sleep, Lyra slipped outside. She stood under the pale moon, staring at the device in her hand. One press of a button, and the syndicate would know exactly where to find them. Her thumb hovered over the signal key in her mind. She heard her sister's laugh from years ago, felt the small hand gripping hers. Then she saw the syndicate soldiers tearing them apart, and she remembered the cold training halls, where she had been remade into a weapon. She lowered her hand. A twig snapped behind her. She turned to see Daniel watching her. He looked at the device, then at her face. You going to call them? He asked quietly. Lyra held his gaze. I thought about it, and she slipped the device back into her cloak. I'm not ready to trade one life for another. Daniel nodded slowly. Good, because I'm not ready to die yet. For the first time, Lyra felt a strange sense of relief and fear. She had made her choice, but it meant turning her back on the only life she'd ever known. And now, both of them were in this together. Far away. In a syndicate control room, a commander frowned at the silence on the line. She's made her choice, he muttered. Send the hunters. The hunt was far from over. Dawn came slow and gray, like the sky was afraid to wake. Daniel and Lyra moved through the trees with careful steps, every branch and shadow feeling like a pair of watching eyes. The air was cold, and a thin fog hugged the ground, hiding their feet as they walked. We can't keep running forever, Daniel said quietly. We only need to run until we find our way out, Lyra replied. Out of the forest, out of the syndicate's reach, she said. Daniel almost laughed. That sounds bigger than a forest. Lyra didn't smile. It is. They reached a ridge shaped like the blade of a broken knife. On the other side lay a wide ravine with a metal skeleton stretched across a fallen freight tram, rusted and twisted like a dead bridge. Beneath it, a dry riverbed cut the land in two. We crossed there, Lyra said. Daniel studied the wreck. Can it hold? It doesn't have to hold long, she answered. Already climbing the angled frame, halfway across, the wind rose, pushing the fog away, and the world sharpened. That's when Daniel heard it, a low hum, growing louder, like thunder without. Clouds. Ships, he whispered. Lyra's head turned. Hunters. She moved faster. Daniel followed, trying not to look down at the drop below. The metal groaned under their weight. A panel snapped free and slid into the ravine, clanging as it fell. The sound rang across the valley like a bell. The hum became a roar. Two sleek syndicate skimmers burst over the tree line, searchlights blazing. The beams swept across the wreck. One of them locked on the pair. They have us, Daniel said. Not yet, Lyra replied, voice steady. She pointed to a tower of twisted cargo crates at the far end of the wreck. Inside there? Go. Daniel leaped the final gap and scrambled. Into the crate tower. Lyra followed, then staggered, hand on her wounded side. She caught herself on a steel beam and pushed the pain away like a memory she didn't want. The skimmers circled. A loudspeaker cracked with a cold voice. Agent Lyra, the syndicate, offers mercy. Surrender the human, and you will be forgiven. You will see your sister. Lyra's jaw tightened. They're still lying, she said, more to herself than to Daniel. Another voice came through, softer, almost kind. Lyra, come home. This is not who you are. Lyra looked at Daniel, said nothing. He didn't beg. He didn't argue. He only met her eyes and nodded once, like he trusted her completely. The choice she made in the night settled again in her chest like a quiet flame. I am not your weapon, she said under her breath. The skimmers fired. Metal shrieked. Sparks lit the morning. Daniel ducked behind a crate as a beam carved a smoking line across the floor. Lyra's hand moved like lightning. She pulled a compact charge from her belt, slammed it against a support beam, and dragged Daniel deeper inside the maze of steel. "This whole thing will fall," Daniel said. "That's the idea," she answered. She set 2 more charges along the structure, counting silently. "When I say jump, we jump. Jump." "Where?" She pointed to a cable line stretched to a cliff anchor, frayed but still intact. At the end of it, a maintenance platform hung halfway. Across the ravine, not safe, not smart, but possible. "Ready?" she asked. "No," he said honestly. "Good. Jump." They leaped as the first charge blew. The world became sound and fire and wind. The wreck groaned and tilted, the floor sliding away under their feet. Daniel hit the cable hard, grabbed it with burning hands, and felt his body swing over the empty air. Lyra landed beside him, one hand catching the cable, the other grabbing Daniel's wrist before he could lose his grip. Below, the tram skeleton tore itself apart and collapsed into the ravine with a roar. The skimmers recoiled, their pilots fighting for balance as the shockwave of dust and debris blasted upward. The cable snapped free on one end, and the two of them swung like a pendulum toward the cliff. "Now," Lyra shouted. They let go. They hit the cliffside hard hands knees, shoulders screaming, and slid down onto the maintenance platform. The cable whipped past and fell into the ravine like a dead snake. Daniel lay on his back, gasping, staring at the pale sky. "We're alive," he said, surprised to hear it. For the next minute, "Yes," Lyra replied. Already on her feet, the skimmers dove again. Blaster fire chewed into the cliff above them. Rocks shattered. Dust rained down. Lyra yanked open an access panel and pulled a manual crank. The platform shuddered and began to rise along a rail. "Faster would be great," Daniel said through gritted teeth. "Tell it a joke," Lyra said. It was almost a smile. The platform crawled upward. The skimmers adjusted their angle for a better shot. Lyra aimed Daniel's pistol, squeezed 3 careful shots, and clipped the lead skimmers. Sensor array. The searchlight died and the ship drifted wide. Scraping the cliff, the second skimmer lined up a clean shot. Tan stopped. A new sound cut through the air. Not a skimmer. A heavier engine. Lyra's eyes sharpened. "I ship." "That ship." She whispered. A battered cargo hauler slid over the ridge, paint scoured by years of hard flight. Its nose bore a faded emblem of a star, split by a line. Daniel recognized it. The same emblem he had seen years ago on the vessel that took the little alien girl to safety. The hauler's side hatch opened. A figure leaned out, waving frantically. A young woman with silver cheek markings and violet eyes, brighter, softer. Hopeful Lyra went still. For a heartbeat, she was not an assassin. She was a sister. "Lyrel," she breathed. The hauler fired a short burst from a belly turret to kill, but to push the skimmers away. The hunters veered off, regrouping, and then chose distance over risk. They pulled back, engines snarling, and disappeared into cloud. The platform clanged into its top bracket. A rope ladder dropped from the hauler's hatch. "Go," Daniel said. Lyra looked at him. "We go," she corrected. They climbed together. Hands reached to pull them inside the young woman's hands, shaking with joy. Lyra and Lyrel stared at one another, the years between them collapsing into a single breath. No words came at first. Then both spoke at once. "I thought you were gone," Lyrel said, voice breaking. "I thought you were captive." Lyra answered, eyes wet. Daniel stepped back, giving them space he didn't need to be told to give. The hauler banked away from the ravine, engines rumbling steady and sure. Inside the cabin, A familiar face turned from the pilot's chair-scarred man with tired eyes. Daniel blinked. "Captain Hale," he said. The captain gave a short nod, still hauling strays out of bad places. "You pick interesting friends, Cross." Daniel glanced at Lyra and Lyral, holding each other like the world couldn't take them apart again. He felt something tight in his chest loosen. Hale's smile faded. "Don't relax yet. The syndicate will chase. They always chase." Lyra turned, her face calm now, her voice stronger than before. "Let them chase," she said. "We're not running in circles anymore." Daniel met her eyes. "What's the plan?" She looked past him, out the cockpit window, at the widening sky. "We disappear to the edges," she said. "We find the places they forgot. We build new names. And when the syndicate comes, we make sure they regret it." Lyral squeezed her sister's hand. "Together," she said. "Together," Lyra agreed. Daniel nodded. "Together," he echoed, and the word felt right. The hauler climbed into the morning, leaving the broken bridge and the silent forest behind. Far below, in the ravine, smoke curled from the wreck like the last breath of an old life. Ahead, the sky opened, wide and bright and full of places where a person could become something new. They had no map. They had enemies. They had a promise. A new path had begun.